When I've tried to book accessible accommodation, I've always felt like facilities for disabled guests has been something that I've almost had to tick a box for. It's been something extra. And one thing that I love about Accomable is that accessible accommodation is the priority. It's not an add-on. It's not a tick box exercise. It's something that is seen as massively high up on the agenda and hugely important. I was always really worried about being too dependent on people or having to ask for help or worrying that I was going to be some kind of burden to whoever I was travelling with. And actually I felt like a real true traveller that's been able to embrace and experience everything that's been given to me without having to worry about how I'm going to get my wheelchair around certain places and certain areas. Barcelona is one of the most accessible cities I personally have visited. There's been buildings that have been built in the 15th and 16th centuries accessible for a wheelchair user because the effort has been made to make tourism and travel accessible. I've actually really enjoyed getting around Barcelona. Buses and taxis, tube, every single one of those modes of transport has been brilliantly accessible for me. I think we are so ingrained to think by society that we can't do this and we can't do that and there's limitations here and there, that actually getting the confidence up to travel and to get out there and try something new is one of the biggest battles. I first got onto the handbike and my legs had to straighten out quite a lot to make the movement right. And that was quite painful and I found that really quite tricky. I suddenly thought, oh man, this is really difficult, I can't do it. And I was so close to giving up. But my mind had a bit of a switch halfway through and I really started to persevere with it. And I think my experience was a bit of an analogy for accessible travel in general. There are some things that we find really frustrating, that are really hard work and make us want to give up, but it's important to persevere so that we as disabled travellers can have a great time, but we can also create a bit of a pathway for other disabled people who might want to travel in the future. And for anybody thinking about coming to Barcelona, I would simply say crack on with it and do it. Amazing culture, so much history here, brilliant food, friendly people, and it's incredibly accessible and inclusive, regardless of who you are and what your additional requirements are. We as disabled people have just as much right to travel as anybody else. And actually, instead of being a burden or being dependent on other people, what we can actually do is hugely change perceptions and really raise awareness and educate the people around us when we do travel. So come on and enjoy it.